Hi ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Grounded, a game that I've seen in my Steam list for a while there, and I thought, oh, this is a game I enjoyed the heck out of when it actually launched. I wonder what's been added to it. Luckily, actually the people who make this, Obsidian, a lovely developer, actually has a developer update notes, so I ended up watching all those videos, which you should probably go check out if you're interested in the game as well. Now the point of this video is just to kind of talk about Grounded as a whole, and hopefully where it goes. The funny thing is, after watching video after video of developer update after developer update, well, first of all, awesome to see that developers are holding this game true to form. They're actually putting it every month. There's substantial changes, bug fixes. They're adding more and more stuff, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But one of the things that is just absolutely hilarious to me is that the developers in some ways are hell-bent in making this like a Dark Souls-like experience, which is just the funniest shit to me, because it's the most like Honey I Shrunk the Kids kind of goofy, fun, cutesy game that they're like going hard on. So one of the things that you notice after watching all the developer updates is that they're like, hey, by the way, we took away the ability for you to like avoid damage. Also, we're adding 6 different type of really hostile, terrifying enemies like mosquitoes, spiders that can swim, and all in all, they have a whole bunch of new attack combinations that make it so that they can just dive at you and you can't hide behind any sort of structure. Love you! Bye! And it's like, what is happening? Like, the spiders were already creepy enough. The wolf spider, a fucking nightmare. What are we doing? Why are we creating mosquitoes that are horrific? They have the creepiest sound imaginable, and they're also fairly hard. We'll talk about combat in a little while, because I'm mostly memeing, but it is also like, why does it need to be like this? Why is it so fucking hard? Why do they have such weird attack combinations? Why do they make such visceral sounds? Like, it seems like this game has a conflict of interest within itself a great deal, which is the notion of, hey, here's a game where you just try your little tiny child in a fucking backyard. Guess what? These kids are dying. These kids are getting eaten. They're getting put into webs. They're being pumped full of eggs. It's just a fucking walking nightmare. Okay, what the hell has happened? Why are you making a game so terrifying in a beautiful art style and etc.? God in heaven. I digress. But yes, one of the things that's evident is, if you're watching these updates, is that they've given all of the creatures, all of the terrifying creatures, more attack combinations. Now, let's address combat right at the header. They have added some cool things within many different updates in the game, by the way. There was a pond update, which is what we're kind of going to be seeing in the background of this video, where I kind of try to mess around in that regard. But yes, there's a pond update where they decided, you know what the pond needs? The pond needs spiders that can swim. Yeah, that's it. Who is working for you but the worst kind of sadistic fuck I've ever had the pleasure of being around, frankly. Maybe not pleasure is the right word. Maybe a walking nightmare is a better phrase. But jokes aside, back to the combat. The one thing that they have added with the mosquito, this terrifying creature, once you kill him, you'll actually unlock his schnoz, his pointy stinger. Now, you have a new weapon called the saber. It attacks very quickly, and it actually has some substantially cool perks. One of the things it does is it gives you health regen based on you every time you hit. But of course, my friends, you might be like, oh, GRINN, this seems like a good weapon. Anything with health steal is pretty awesome. Well, you're right. But it can't be too awesome, my friend. No. This is Grounded, a walking nightmare. Okay? So they nerfed the fucking saber. The health steal was really decent, and now it's not that good. So guess what, bitch? It sucks to suck. It does, like, you have to land like 7 hits or something weird, and then you finally get like a normal enemy's attack, like a spider's thump. You'll get that much back after 7 hits, and yes, it attacks fast, but not that fast. So all this is kind of having me explain what the combat to me is kind of being hinted at, which one of them, yes, is archery, although not really. Again, enemies will just close the distance too quickly for you to kill them. It's mostly a way for you to engage, get some damage on top, and then deal the main damage with a spear or any sort of single-hand weapon and a shield. Again, it's a meme, but it's a pretty on-point meme. They're making Dark Souls in a goofy, fun, honey, I chunk the kids kind of game, which is, I'm mostly kidding, but I'm not. They're giving you a shield and a saber, and they reduce the healing on the saber so that you can't just like tank and just be hyper aggressive. Like, I'd rather them have perks in the game that like allow you to facilitate a build so that you can just play that way if you want to play that way. But instead, no, they increased the shields. When they lowered the saber's lifesteal, they buffed the shield that they added, defense, and already you get a lot of resistance just by blocking. Also, you want to know something else that they did? And it's so fucking hilarious because I was watching those videos. This is a tangent, but I was watching those videos of developer updates, and I just seen that it's like a one-off combat, but the girl's like, hey, by the way, we added a shield. Also, did I mention that we added randomization to enemies' attack patterns so you never can know rhythm ever? So they'll just randomly be like, bah! You're like, fuck, shit. I'm just like, what are we doing? What is happening? Why is this game turning into such a fucking nightmare? It was already kind of brutal. And it's hilarious because that's the thing in all of these updates is such a consistent thing is like more enemies, different enemy variety, more things. Very few in like terms of crafting. Like you can't build, it seems like there's not much leveled up equivalents of walls and such, which is hilarious. But no, they're like, no, we added a pond and there's horrifying things underneath there. Also, there's a food source. So now you're tempted to go in there and inevitably die because of you're trying to get food and there's spiders that can float and da-da-da. I'm 100% kidding, by the way. It's well, I'm not kidding, but I'm mostly joking. It's not that bad. Like going into the water isn't the worst. You just scout ahead. You can probably be pretty fine. Now, I only got to mess around with a couple things in the update. I will say, one of the things that Grounded kind of suffers from is two things. One of the things I want to talk about at the end of the video, which is what I think Grounded is missing from. Because you can have a game that's like this, game that is genuinely challenging, but you need to have multiple ways to face that challenge. You can't just say, hey, get a shield, block a lot, and then melee whenever you have a slight opening and don't get overbearing. Don't take more than you can chew. You know, hit less and block more. You can do that, but if that's the only way you can do stuff, then that's kind of boring. Also, what happens when you get fought with two enemies, which I know you're going to do if you're creating these kind of like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids dungeons. You need to have multiple ways to actually like beat something. Games like Don't Starve and such know this really, really well. Hell, even Minecraft knows this really, really well. I want to talk about that towards the end. Something that I think Grounded desperately needs, and honestly would be something that pulls me back into the game. Because like I said, there's plenty of things I think developers have been adding, but none of them have been something where I'm like, oh, okay, if this is part 1 of a 5-part update, eventually for me to run this out eventually, then I'm game. We'll talk about that towards the end, and I want to know if you guys actually agree with me on this. But anyways, the other problem is Grounded has this, it's very odd, in my opinion. For instance, an example of kind of hinting at this problem is Burgle, and like science points. But they have these like, this is a game that you have to pay for, and they have these science points, and they have these like daily missions for you to slowly accrue science points. But yeah, this isn't a free-to-play game. This is not like a paid as a, well, this is a paid as a service game, I guess, but it's not, it just seems weird for you to have this like, wait, I can only get this amount of points a day? Why are you limiting me in that regard? It's like a single player game where we're just building shit and trying to survive. Like there's no need to elongate the process of progression. It just doesn't make much sense in that regard. It'd be cool if you could just like go to Burgle and burn a bunch of resources that you farmed and grinded, and some have a higher quality or goodness than others, you know? That'd be something, but there's nothing like that. So this kind of leads me towards, I think, Grounded in some ways fundamental problem. I'm interested if you guys actually agree with me on this. Maybe I'm missing something, but Grounded doesn't tell you how to do anything. And yes, to some extent that's charming, but more often than not, I think it's just confusing. Like for instance, they have this brand new update. It seems pretty interesting. It's got this, well, it's not brand new, sorry. It's been around for a while. There's a pond update. There is also a bee update. And there's like a flying-ish update, which is kind of like the bee update. And then there's just tiny other things that they've added. They've upgraded some of the like structures you can build, except not really. It's just kind of makes your structure look a little more prettier, adding like bottom corner support looking beams. Let's take the thing that I tried to get into and actually film some stuff for you guys, because I thought it was actually pretty interesting. And when I seen the developer update, I was like, oh, okay, here we go. But essentially, there is now a pond that you can actually explore, and they've of course sprinkled in some horrors as well as some cool things in there. Hence, you can kill this one bug and essentially get a flippers. Now, the thing that kind of gets me a little like not really positive about this stuff, but one of the things in Grounded that's a little weird is the thing that wants to kill you, you can't kill and gain nourishment from. They almost want you to kill an innocent animal or an innocent bug. And that's how you gain. But to me, it's like I wish they would implement stuff like I can kill spiders and eat them, and that's of a better frequency or benefit than anything else. Because it's that notion of like I have to kill ants, I have to kill little like kind of green little speck bugs, whatever they're called, and grubs and all these things. Everything that doesn't want to harm me, I have to kill, and everything that wants to harm me, I can use as like a shield, like a armor. You know, I want to be able to hurt the things that want to hurt me, and hopefully befriend the things that don't. I digress. We'll get into that at the end of the video. But back to the pond update. Long story short, I didn't know how to get into the pond. I seen people in the Obsidians kind of like, hey, this is the new update. I seen people wearing like this weird bubble mask. I had no idea how to get it. I would assume you have to, and this is kind of the problem I think with Grounded, is you have to kill an enemy that you don't know how to kill. He's got a different moveset, and then you got to scan his body parts, and then it tells you what you can create. And then there's just this weird kind of like lost situation if you don't know what enemy that is. And then you're like, oh, Grin, that's the game. You gotta go off to the wiki and look at shit. And I'm like, well, I don't think that's how it should be, fam. I don't know if we should have to go to a third-party site to understand what the fuck to do or where to go. Yeah, like to me, if they had like a quest that just popped up as soon as this update went live, which is like explore the pond, and it's like find this kind of enemy, or there's an enemy type located in this general area, kill it and go learn about it. That's essentially like you could make that really kind of obvious about what the idea is of the activity, but I don't think that exists unless I just didn't see it. If that is a thing, then I'm so sorry. I don't think that's real though. So I think that's part of Grounded's problem, is that there's this kind of like lost nature to a lot of things where like, what do I do? You know, like what, yeah, is there like any ways I can make farms? Is there any way that I can, and that's something that Ark and games like that, even Vinhelm or etc., have that kind of stuff on lockdown to some extent. Is like, okay, well, before we start making the enemies 6 times harder, before we start adding new things just for you to understand, why don't we introduce a loop to you, something that you want to do over and over and over again. Hence the idea of Minecraft. You can build, there's a day and night cycle where we can go out at night and kill some monsters, get some stuff and grind in that way. You can build, you can mine, and don't starve. You can basically set up these food lines, these constant profit, these twigs that you'll eventually be able to harvest, and therefore every single time you harvest them, you'll be able to build more, expand your empire, and play into those things. I don't really know what that is in Grounded. I don't know what that loop is. Kill spiders, get some armor, then what? What's the loop? You gotta build? Okay, I built a general house, but what does that do? Is there can I reinforce the walls 6 times? No? Oh, well, that'd be cool if I could. That was something that original Fortnite Survival or Wave or Save the World did. Well, and I thought that was actually a pretty cool idea. Where you can like reinforce your walls and make them better and better and better. That way you actually have an excuse to go and like grind an abundance of a material. And each time you level it up to tier 4, 3, or 4, 5, 6, it will start changing its look. And it's becoming even more resistant and stuff like that. There's a kind of a loop, there's a time sink in there. And ultimately, guys, that brings me to my final point for Grounded, or one of the things I think I would love. It would be the one thing. Well, there's multiple things, but it would be one of the biggest things that could pull me into Grounded. And I think I am not one of the few people here who would agree with this. I think. Please tell me if I'm absolutely wrong on this. But the one thing I think Grounded is missing is the fact that you are a tiny fish in a very, very big pond. And they're pretty hell-bent on you being that tiny fish. But why not be able to recruit more fishes? And no, I don't mean your friends to play this game. And I'm talking about why not be able to actually, again, one of the biggest things, one of the things that would bring me back to Grounded is to be able to have a taming system, or to have like a army system And I really hope they don't half-ass this. That's my thing. My biggest fear is that they're like, oh, we'll do that, and you can like give an ant some honey, and then he'll like you for 2 seconds, or he'll follow you for 2 seconds. And by the way, when he comes into your house, he'll still smash the shit out of your chests. It's like, no, please, for the love of God, no. Please introduce some sort of like breeding system of you being able to take different kind of types of ants and make them 100% loyal to you if you're able to grow them. I know it sounds kind of gross to some extent, but that's awesome. And imagine if you were actually able to have like 3 high-level fucking ants roll with you into like a spider nest, and you actually use like one of them is like a tank ant and has a ton of health and is hyper aggressive, and then you have another ant that maybe spits like venom from afar. Or whatever it might be, and then you just keep having that kind of like team, or maybe you have a ladybug. I don't know, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, but to me, that would be a way for you to be like, okay, now it's not about the fact that you are just a single thing trying to find some crap technology that can give you a slight advantage that you can slightly win, but even still, it's mostly on your ability to block and time and come up with a plan beforehand. Why not instead have another way of doing it? Yes, you could do it that way, but you could also do it in the way of, hey, I want to devote resources and time to making something that can help me immensely and meaningfully in the way against monsters, in the way against these terrifying creatures that are all kinds of fucked. And eventually, yeah, so long story short, one of the things I think would be absolutely lovely and would pull me back into Grounded is if they developed that loop. The loop of getting a creature, an ant, a ladybug, a mosquito, maybe even a spider when you get really like deep into endgame, and to be able to build that creature up, maybe with the right DNA strains, maybe with enough science points, maybe with whatever, you can make a stronger and stronger equivalent of a pet / companion that can actually help you fight against these horrifying monsters of the night. To the point in which you could actually make something strong enough to take on like a wolf spider, or at least maybe make an army enough to put a dent in a wolf spider, or something like that, the new big bad enemy that you have. Did I mention that the pond also has a giant koi fish? Yeah, it's not that hostile, but it can be. It opens its mouth and you can get sucked into it if you're that close. Yeah, so there was some stuff in the pond. Again, the thing that I was a bit sad about is I couldn't actually go into the pond because I have no idea how to get like the rebreather stuff. So I was kind of just like, oh, okay, well, this is, I wish I knew what to do. I guess I gotta stop and wiki it, and I was just like, I don't want to do that. I just want to run around. So I just ran around. But please let me know, guys. Again, I'm debating whether I should get back into Grounded. I feel like, again, I want to wait for that to be a thing, because right now, like I said, what's the goal for me in Grounded? To jump in, make a house, then what? Kill some enemies, get some decent armor, I guess, which I already kind of have. Then what? What's the loop? What's the drive? What's the reason for doing just about anything? You know, I kind of want, again, if there was like an in-depth breeding system of like you being able to actually craft or like create an army of ants. And again, I hope they just don't limit it. That's my biggest fear, is when people implement like, hey, yeah, we will introduce like a pet system, and then it's just ass. Like, it's not powerful, and it's like weirdly developed. It's almost like they didn't make it powerful, so that but it also just makes sense why you would do that, because why even add it if it's not going to be a viable thing? Yeah, a little worried on that. But again, that would be something that I'd really, really love to see and ground it, and that would totally bring me back. So I could bring back everyone else, because there's not many games that are like that. Yes, there's Ark, but Ark is kind of weirdly. Ark is great, but Ark can kind of be a little buggy. Whereas if you were playing this game, if you chose to do it really, really cleanly and smoothly, and also this would be an antidote to me, which is the weird present thing in this game, which is, again, it's you against a monstrous world, which, yes, is fun, but why does it always have to be that way? Why can't you, with your knowledge and your understanding of bugs and whatnot, create something like a pet or an army of ants or whatever? And that could be the loop, is constantly creating a better and better pet that can help you knock the odds back in your favor, right? I've talked enough. I want to know what you guys think about it at this point. Do you guys have anything that would pull you back into Grounded, or are you guys liking these little updates? It's kind of like a little spice to life, gets you a couple hours with your friends to mess around working with the monster base you've potentially built for your built with them. I'm curious to hear back from you, but I don't think anyone would be upset with a true like power gaining loop of taking insects, leveling them up to some extent, breeding them maybe, and then using that to defeat the horrors in the backyard, so to speak, until you can finally get big again. But I digress, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for your time. Hopefully you guys do enjoy the rest of your day. This is a trip down memory lane. I just want to check up on Ground and see what it is. Again, I think it's hilarious that they keep adding more hostile shit. Like, do you guys know that they added, you know how there's grubs in the ground? Like, there's like those mealworms that are like running around. You guys know how you guys can see like displaced dirt, and then you hit it with a shovel, and then it used to pop up a grub, like a little worm. Well, now they were like, you know what, that we know what you need. You need the ability for when you do that, there's a chance for you to summon a larva, which is a creepy little like evil worm that can like rip off your face. Yeah, we love you. What? What is happening? What are we playing? Are we playing Dark Souls? What the fuck? Anyways, I digress. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been nothing shy of absolutely lovely. Thank you so much for putting out with me. This is me just ranting about a game that we played on the channel before. And again, if it ever does introduce that, I would love to go back and actually play it. But to me, I think you guys are in the same boat. Why would I come back if there's no substantial, like, seeable loop or thing that I can do for a good bit of time, rather than just, you know, kill a boss, understand what its materials can do, and only see that that's a bow, a weapon, or maybe a helmet. You know, this doesn't seem like a seekable loop. But I digress. Ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you enjoy the rest of your day. Let me know what you guys think about Grounded, if I'm missing anything, if my worries are actually being answered in the future, if the devs have ever talked about, hey, we actually want to create something like that, but it's proving to be a bit difficult. I don't know. I would love to know. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. Hopefully you guys enjoy the rest of your day, and